All right, I don't know.
I said quiet, but it does
Twice.
seem like you are now live.
Oh, okay. Hey, yeah. All right, enough talking shit. Let's get this show going. Hey, everybody, it's Marc with Needlejig. How y'all doing today? It's a Monday live, and today we're getting back with Miss Renee Little.
I said quiet.
What?
It does seem like you are now live.
Oh, okay. Hey, yeah. Wait a minute. Now I'm fucking. Oh, fuck.
Somebody's playing it in the background.
I got it going on in the background here. I didn't know my screen was going to go live. All right. A little bit of technical difficulties, kids. This is our first time trying something new. So I unfortunately had YouTube open on a tab. So the time delay kicked in. I started hearing myself. So anyways, I'm going to start over a little bit. This is Marc with Needlejig. Good to see you all, even though I can't. And it's Monday live again. We're back with Miss Renee Little. We our original video we set up, we were going to talk about color saturation and some technical aspects of tattooing, but we had such a great conversation, we never touched on the original subject matter. So we're back now to discuss that and hopefully stay on topic this time. So say good morning or afternoon to Miss Renee Little. How you doing, kid?
Good. How are you doing, Marc?
I can't complain other than looking like a fool, seeing how I can't time things or know what's going on half the day. So
For a second, I did think it was me, so I was just like, oh, looked over, and I'm like, okay, no, 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 it's all right. But
Maybe I do need to do that will help. Bear with me because I'm obviously quite ill prepared today. I got to get my.
oh, get your headphones on.
Yeah. Okay.
That's
So, all right. All right. That is going to help a little bit. See,
get it together, Marc.
I need some kind of checklist or something. Somebody should invent a checklist before going live and some sort of countdown timer system so that I don't just sit here and talk shit into the camera.
That's what Gabe is for. Hello, Gabe.
We can make that happen.
All right. Okay.
And if I
Yes.
okay,
I had to click a switch because all of a sudden now the audio is directed to the headphones. Because all right, so done, over, moving on. We're gonna have some fun today. We are going to discuss color saturation, some technical aspects of tattooing, and pretty much whatever Renee wants to talk about because this is her time, not mine. So. What are you thinking? Where do you want to start today? What would you like to talk about?
I have a couple topics. I'm a little rusty. It's been a really tough couple months, so everyone excuse me if I'm. I wrote myself an actual list of things just to make sure we do stay on topic. So if I look over here and like, okay, this is what we intended upon. Because me and Marc can kind of go back and forth a whole lot. But I've been thinking about the general term of saturation. A lot because there are a lot of videos out there talking about color packing to even color theory and saturation, and been watching everyone's tutorials, and I do have a lot of knowledge in color packing and color theory, but I do think about them in slightly a different way, and so when I'm here being asked to talk about this, I try to think of myself and what can I add or contribute to what has already been made. So I'm just like any other like tattoo artist. I try to create, very, very dynamic pieces and also healthy tattoos for my clients. So yeah, I hope the advice that I give really helps my professional fellow tattooers, and that maybe I can boil down some of these general topics. And kind of just narrow them down a little bit in my own way. So thinking of myself as an individual, what I do paint, and I teach classes for painting as well. And I always tell everyone that you are the strongest as you are more of an individual in what you're talented in. So since I'm a painter, that's kind of how I think and approach about my tattooing and my color saturation. Let's see. And in doing this too, it's very intimidating because, there are a lot of tattooers that do paint. So if you're one of those people that don't generally do art outside of tattooing, there still might be some tips, because I do kind of think of things in layman's terms and can kind of, I don't know, maybe help in that way. Let's see. If anyone wants to comment or leave a comment so I can read back later, I can always address things later on as well on my Instagram or another video here with Marc. So leave a comment if you'd like, and maybe we can address it today in this video since we're live, or we can later on as well.
Okay, yeah, I think there's a chat window going off to the side here, as well as the comments below the description. So if we can't get to you live, leave the comment below, but put your question in live and it'll be filtered through to us hopefully, and maybe we can address it. So awesome.
Okay,
yeah, so I mean, it's always great insight to look into how somebody else creates, whether it's in your style or not. So I think everybody can learn a little something by observing other artists or communicating with other artists. That's what I like about the shop atmospheres. So.
Oh, absolutely. If I tattooed by myself, I would never grow. You know,
yeah, nobody gets better by themselves. There's nothing to learn. You know, I mean, it's not like you have a wealth of knowledge stored up there and you just got to access it. No, you learn through experiences. So.
Yeah, if only I could have like these silent epiphanies by myself, you know, which sometimes you can.
Yeah, but they're generally based on something you've seen, read, experienced, or something somewhere down the road where you just finally, epiphanies to me are when you finally put the pieces of the puzzle together in your head. That's how I think of it, where all of a sudden it clicks. You had all the tools, you had all the pieces, you had everything you needed, but then all of a sudden it just all makes sense. And you're like, oh, wow, that's cool. But it's all based on stuff. That's if you want to go with conventional thinking. I also spiritually believe in sort of one collective knowledge base out there that we just don't have the ability to tune into or out of when we want to, at least not yet, but that's a whole different discussion.
Oh yeah, no, I could talk about even like, I'm very proud of the melting pot that I have within my own studio. And I always say that it makes us more intelligent, because it's true. Like we all want to be a very like broad spectrum artist while we're also a tattooer, just so we can continue to grow. And I mean, I have my specialty, the other artist has their specialty, and then we can all kind of rub on each other and learn from one another.
We're going to keep this PG, okay, Renee?
Can't help it. I don't think everyone would be surprised if we worked.
I mean, I agree 100% because as a collective and experiencing each other's techniques and styles and things like that, that's how we grow. I always laugh at the artists that don't want to experience that because they want to maintain their individuality, and that does work. I mean, to a certain degree. But you really only develop your own style based off of everything you've seen. So if you haven't exposed yourself to many, many different styles, then by not exposing yourself to multiple styles, you're kind of forcing yourself into a style because you don't have those experiences and the knowledge. I don't know. It's weird to look at, but we were talking color saturation.
Yes. Yes, there's always the making sure you grow and prosper, but yes, there is color saturation. There we go. We almost went off topic. Okay, so back to the point. Basically, when it comes down to, I think, and I learned this again from Troy Temple, who has influenced me so much. But I'm trying to think of the word, but he always wanted to achieve to be a more efficient tattoo artist. And I thought about this for years because years before that, I always tried to be a very decisive tattoo artist. And because everything was so chaotic all the time, and I had to think on my toes. And being an efficient tattooer also meant to me that I did stay within my style range, or that I just mastered it to a point where I could do it efficiently. And so this is pretty much my everyday mantra, is that I'm going to be decisive and I'm going to be efficient, and every day try to master this craft, because we are doing it for people, and they are part of our mediums just as much as our machines, our needles, and our pigments. So I want to talk about client care first off, because you can't do anything else without your clients. We are canvasless without them. So I try my best to meet my client in person to talk about the tattoo placement, things like that. And then I can assess to see if their skin is healthy, their age, and also any variables that could change kind of my algorithm in which I kind of set up my tattoo for them. This is really hard, actually, like reading and talking at the same time. Hold on, let me get this. All right. Okay, cool. So I first have them come in, assess their age, if there's any scar tissue, if there's any imperfections of skin. And then that's my canvas. So I can kind of get them prepped and ready before I start thinking about everything else. And I have that conversation with them about basically like their good regiment before they get their tattoo. So I try to do this at least a month beforehand, or more. Sometimes I book out to a year out, and so you get plenty of time. It's always helpful to reach out to them beforehand and make sure that they're doing their regimen and their routine, because sometimes it's really out of the ordinary for some people to do these things. Keep them out of the sun, try to not lessen their sun exposure to the area to be tattooed. You don't want to be dealing with any flaking skin. You don't want to be dealing with any, sensitive skin because it's had too much sun exposure. I always have them exfoliate and also lotion, keeping their skin hydrated, and making sure they get plenty of sleep, and make sure that they're having like a pretty good nutritious diet before the tattoo session even begins. So that can ensure their skin is really healthy, and it will absolutely guarantee that your client and yourself have just the best experience and an overall outcome as well. So many numerous things like hyperinflammation could, or a robust inflammation could occur if they're not hydrated or they're underslept. And then you cannot possibly saturate color and deeply and evenly pack in color into skin that is having that really robust inflammation response. You just cannot do it. So I see a lot of overpacking of color, and that is something that you want to try to avoid. So I really try to make sure that my client and my canvas is number one when I begin. And then
I used to do something, I won't say similar, because it was just a little microcosm of what you just explained. But I mean, I used to tell my clients, hey, get a good night's sleep, eat well, and stay hydrated, at least the day before you come in. I wasn't trying to prep them months in advance, but basically I wanted their body to have the nutrients and the rest and things that they needed before they come in. So, that you don't end up with, it just adds to the comfort. I mean, if your body's lacking in any particular area, that's going to come through and show exponentially during the tattoo experience. If they're overtired, or they're undernourished, or they're dehydrated, any of those aspects for sure. But I never thought about trying to make it into like a regimen, which is kind of cool that you do that again. But then again, when I was tattooing every day, there was no booking out, months in advance or years in advance.
Right.
And that wasn't the case. It was mostly street shop stuff. And then, you had your appointments and your customs and your regulars, but it wasn't, it just wasn't booked out like that. And you also perfectly described that the perfect client would not be a tattooer because too much
as I
dehydrated.
yeah.
Everything you said is outside polar opposite of the tattooer's lifestyle. So
Of the typical lifestyle, yes. I believe that, but a lot of us are trying to reach for healthier goals in their life.
but
But
only as we get
typically,
older.
yeah. Oh,
Only
yeah,
as
we are,
we've
yeah, in the
learned,
beginning.
maybe.
Yeah, maybe. I think, by my tenure, I started feeling it and realizing that I had to take care of myself, even if I wanted to get through the whole session myself. I had to be hydrated. I had to be well fed. I had to be well slept. And because I started actually physically having repercussions of not taking care of myself. And I've experienced that with clients, that it is a whole new world. We have these options now, so where now that I do bigger pieces as well, and I book out a little bit further, I can have that conversation with them. And I see my clients almost like very close interrelations, that I get to tell them these secrets and help them along, because I've experienced it myself and had, the repercussions of trying to make it through an 8-hour day with a tattooer and being slightly hungover or being underslept, or, trying to break it through and then healing terribly, and having to like, hi, yeah, sorry, I need a little bit of a touch up. I kind of, I went a little too far. So they can do it or they don't do it. It's up to them. But if I at least give them the information, I hope that sometimes they follow. But
And also being booked out that far, you kind of get, you get the ability to pick and choose your clients and work with those that are more accepting of what you ask of them. So, I mean, if somebody's not going to play by your rules, you don't necessarily have to tattoo them, which is kind of a conundrum, because like you should always try and please anybody who wants to get tattooed by you by any means possible. But then again, there's those ones that you're just like, maybe you should talk to somebody else, but so that's a hard line to walk sometimes.
I'm actually, I'm pretty open to things. I do tattoo a really huge, like my population of clientele is really varied. And I have one client that I know from experience that he can work a 12-hour shift in the hospital field, the medical field, and then sit. Oh, there he is, actually. There he is. And then sit for 8 hours or 9 hours, and he'll just sleep it through, and he's a robot, he's a machine. And you can see his color, he heals great, he does all kinds. And so there is that wild card. There is that wild variable that
I literally hate people that can sleep through tattoos.
I love them. He sleeps solidly. Like, I think the only time I've made him wince was in the very center of that back.
All right, maybe I'm insanely jealous of them, so therefore I'm envious and spiteful and hateful. But yeah, I just angers me.
I can do it if it's on my legs. I'm pretty good. Which I'm working on my back now, and now I just giggle, and it's real weird. But we have fun. And this one as well. Most of my back pieces are on people that are mentally well trained in receiving discomfort. They are prepped, they are ready, they see it as a sport. They come in for the day and they're, hey, I am ready to go for it. I have, I've had my Nutrigrain bars, I've had my eggs, I've had, they come in with thermoses and, little lunch pails, and they're just down for it. And so I think also when you talk to your clients, even in the beginning, about even just their health regimen, I think it mentally gets them prepared as well. And they kind of realize a little bit more, oh, this is like a thing. This is going to be an all-day event. I'm going to really get to know this girl. I better be on my, stay on my P's and Q's. I better be, well groomed. I better be well slept, so I can just present myself, and be prepared for this. Where you just go into a doctor's appointment and he looks at you and you're like, okay, cool, go ahead. Bigger pieces are definitely a little bit more of it needs to be a little bit more of a regimented thing, especially if they're getting their tattoos, either, I usually go about every single month with them until it's done. So, I always tell them, take your vitamins because your body will need it.
So you mother your clients as well as your friends.
Yes. Yes, I do.
Aw,
Out of love. Out of love.
that's
No,
what
a lot
we
of people
love
are
about you.
thanks. Is it a control issue or is it out of love?
It can be both, right?
Yeah, it can be both.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. The control gives me comfort. Yes.
Okay.
But I mean, my heels have been absolutely incredible. You don't have to do as many touch-ups. You don't have to. So really, it also for me, I can honestly guarantee up to a certain point with my clients, and they love that too. They're spending a lot of money. The more guarantees you can give them, and the more like caution, and the more that you can let them know that you have done everything you're humanly possible to make sure that they're going to be okay and healthy and receive a good product, the better. So I just see it as also a little bit more, that's kind of that's a bit of what I sell to people and what I can give to people is this reassurance. Yeah.
It's just that simple. You
extremely.
care, you care about your clients, you care about your own work, I mean, that's, you don't want crappy work out there walking around.
Terrified terrified of failure, really. Yeah, absolutely terrified. I'm not allowed to fail, My grandmother will rise from the grave and just go, I don't know, I'm very disappointed, oh my. So I can't let that happen.
We all make mistakes, you know that.
Yes, of course. So with that, you've secured your client. They know what to do. Your canvas is now prepped, is how I kind of think about it. Let's talk about actual saturation, because that is one part of it. And that's where I will be kind of everywhere. And I hope that I'm not too confusing, merging now more of the painting aspect with the tattooing aspect. But this has really helped me kind of just piece it together so I could verbalize it, really, because of course I can show in action and I can show examples of, which we have a couple here, which is great. Yeah, let's go for the ride. If any questions, please ask. I do like questions a whole lot. So saturation, I'm just going to read this so I don't make sure I don't stumble on my words. Saturation is also referred to the intensity of a color, the vibrancy or the purity of color. High saturation is the most untampered color, if you will. When you mix it with any color, you can desaturate that pure color. And so when I choose my pigments, my palette for my clients, I also keep in mind the client's skin tone. And I try to have fun and be creative with color combinations with their skin tone until I achieve the color that I want. So if you're wanting, a certain kind of blue, you have to kind of see their skin tone and mix it with the right combination of blue that you have to achieve the blue that you want in the end, if that makes any sense. If your client's skin tone is darker, you will have, no matter what, a desaturated color or pigment or overall palette, even using the purest of color, because that skin tone is showing through. But there are many tricks in passing this. Let's see.
I've always described it to people as looking through like a window tint film.
Yes.
It can be different shades of anywhere from pinks to deep browns, and that's the best way to look at it. So like I can show you a picture on the wall, but pick up a piece of tint and put it over it, and you're going to get to some degree that color loss because it's being diffused through a tinted film. So that was the best way I could describe it to people. So I didn't want to interrupt, but I mean it's like it's the same thing, just described in a different manner.
Oh, absolutely. And there's sometimes I will use this example when doing cover-ups. I'll show in Procreate, I'll kind of take down the opacity of the color so it's translucent, and I can show the tattoo to them and show them how black works versus yellow versus orange versus, you know, and show them how I can camouflage the tattoo within what they're wanting. So that is a very, very good way of describing it. And also, if we have Procreate, we have these things. Now, I used to use the color tone paper when I would, you know, get out my Prismacolors and use like try to figure out my color palette that way. But now we have Procreate. I can literally put my client skin tone in behind my drawing and use that as my canvas. So when I'm picking out my colors, I can try to pre-match everything that I have. And I have uploaded all of my pigments as well on my iPad. So I can adjust and do everything as much as I possibly can beforehand, just so I don't have to sit there and think. But anyway, sometimes it is good to see your client through. And I ask them this too, because I am in Oklahoma and the sun is strong here, and there's I mean, there is a very diverse culture here. So I do ask a lot of times, you know, do you get very dark during the summer? Do you get very pale during the winter? Do you fluctuate? So I can kind of I can get prepped for that. And I think I really adapted this tattooing in Oklahoma and also tattooing in Florida, where as I would say in Florida, sometimes you get that client that comes in that's the color of a burnt orange peel. And you can't use green, you can't use blue, you can't do any of these things because you need to tattoo to the environment of which your client lives in as well. You know, if they're a surfer, you're not going to want to do all these vibrant colors. And that's why, you know, really cool tribal looks sometimes really good. It's keep it basic, keep it breathable, keep it open. So the tattoo over time doesn't get muddied, because that has happened so many times where I would do this really intricate piece and then like, oh wow, you completely turned 5 shades darker during the summer and I can't see your tattoo. Wow. Okay. You know, it's a surprising factor, and it's another reason you just don't want that element happening to your piece. And so when you pick out these colors, then, you know, you can think about color saturating as far as color packing as well. Sometimes you can use this to your advantage and use that skin tone to desaturate your color as well. So by not over packing or just packing solidly, of course, will change the vibrancy or make that true color as vibrant as you possibly can, no matter what. But if you take that away and say like half pack and blend into the skin, you know, you can use that as a completely other color tone as well. And so when applying all these, when applying my tattoos, I really try to actually use as much skin as possible. Even though it looks like a lot of my tattoos are just wall to wall color, there is a lot of skin breaks in there. Or not as heavily applied color. So I can deal with desaturation in that way by just using the natural skin. I do this for healing purposes and also just the longevity of the tattoo as well. When you can have that much control, you can have one area super, super saturated and you know that will keep up. And then you have some areas that you want lighter or darker. You can just control that by actual minimal tattooing. So, you know, less trauma to the skin, better heals overall. That also adds to the impact of overall saturation and heal. Sometimes, you know, things will look patchy if you just try to lighten them over time. So I try again, just if I can use the skin, I will. Because overall, you know, good saturation should not look patchy, should not look textured, should be smooth. Especially over time.
Okay, so you use the word saturation more as a color value rather than like I look at it as I've always visualized it. The definition is more of like intensity, like physically packing more pigment, little dry powder particles, into
Mhm.
a small area. So just quick name like the Dave Tavenel stuff. You look at Dave's stuff, and
Mhm.
it is pretty much wall to wall color, and it looks like
Mhm.
the pigment's this thick in the skin. It's just that's how I view saturation,
Mhm.
and that can, but it seems like you're using the term just a little differently because you're talking about blends or even fades into the. I'm just trying to get a read on how you're defining saturation so that I can follow along in this conversation
Right.
more
No, that
accurately with
is
your intentions rather than my visualization. So
right. And that is actually, that is the merger of two sides. In painting, saturation is the intensity of color, the true form of color, where in tattooing, it is the physical act of like intensity of packing into the skin. So they are one and the same. And that is actually the merger that I'm making because that is how I kind of approach it. So if I have from the tube, and I pack it solidly within the skin, um, that is not only intensely packed, but it is also the intense color, like the true form of that color we can get to. So it is kind of that is the merger that I'm using to explain how to change the desaturation of tone and also application, like technical application of the tattoo, if that makes any sense.
what I'm trying
Where
to
value.
what I'm thinking, what I'm hearing is when you're using the word saturation, it doesn't
Mhm.
necessarily mean to have the mixture of the perfect tone that you want packed in as solidly as possible. It seems like your definition of saturation is achieving the color that you want in the skin with as little trauma and penetration as possible. Is that how I'm reading it? Sort of like you're achieving
Ultimately,
the visual effect
ulti-
that you want without
mhm.
necessarily bombarding the skin with tons of particles, right?
Ultimately, yes.
Okay.
Yes. So they are, I see both terms one and the same. So, yes,
Okay.
ultimately, you want to be an efficient, minimal tattooer, then it is all visually how it comes out in the end.
Mhm.
So, if you have an intense color and you're intensely packing it in as well, you will see that intense color as it is. If you have an intense color and half pack it in, then that intensity will die down. So they piggyback one another. And yes, there's color packing and concentrating that is a smooth surface, but I that is its own topic. So I know that's where I was a little worried of pairing the two, but saturation is a it is a design qual or it is an element of design.
Right.
And yes, and what I want to kind of angle at is how I achieve this very saturated looking tattoo. In the tattoo world, we use that known as like saturating, actual technically saturating it into the skin.
Mhm.
In the art world where I'm from, that is about how it actually looks. Um, and so with value, that's a very good, that's part of the topic. Um, and we can talk about full chroma and full saturation, high saturation. Uh, if you use a black and gray scale, because value is basically in the art world, how dark is something? How dark is a color? How dark or light is a color versus is that color desaturated? So what that means, to desaturate a color, you can blend it with another color, any color, and that will become desaturated. Yes, look at that. So it's taking away the value, it's like totally like and desaturating. But
Right. And a
if
well-designed
you
tattoo is going to still hold its visual values if you pick and use the correct color placements.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
And what I found is very interesting is you can achieve a lot of dynamic, like, of course, do we have to talk about contrast? I believe everyone knows about contrast. Um, you can achieve a lot by using high saturated colors in your foreground to make a very dynamic piece, and use unsaturated or desaturated colors kind of as they're piggybacking them in your background, and kind of they desaturated colors or muted colors really help support your high saturated colors. And so to achieve this, I can use a lot of skin tone. If someone is a little bit tanner, I can use a lot of skin tone. I can use a lot of things, and that will look like a desaturated color naturally. And so that's kind of why I like to marry the two, because they are not only are you trying to get a visual effect, but you also don't want to traumatize the skin as well. So I'm able to do very large pieces without having any kind of really bad heels or anything like that. I was really trying to think, why is that? And it is because of the efficiency and minimizing my steps that I take in how I approach the tattoo. And really that's approaching it like a painter. And it took me a really long time to realize that, but I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does. And I'm just trying to get clarification for my own mind, because we all know the same words, but we all kind of sort of have our own loose interpretations of different things based on your own background, your education, and things like that. So, and we don't know what other, like, I know you're well educated in art, and I'm half-assed educated in art, to be honest with you. So if people tune in and they're like, they may not relate to the terms you're using and the way they see them. So people need to understand that there are multiple ways of viewing things and listening to things. And that's like, because I view saturation a little bit different than you. So I'm just trying to follow with the way you're seeing it. That's all. So I appreciate you clarifying that for me, because it makes perfect sense now that I know that you use that term slightly different than I do. That's all.
Well, that is my overall goal, is to fuse together my art background and with tattooing as well. Like, there was a time in which I full-time painted and then had to adjust and change and metamorphosize myself into being a tattooer. So I only hope that if you are not art educated, that I teach you some art terms, and that that there is also this different definition of saturation, and they are one and the same, but they just are physically applied differently. Yes. So
I didn't mean to trip you up there. You can get back on track. I just...
No, it's okay. That's what I try to explain beforehand. I'm like, I know this will be very confusing a little bit, but no, we use saturation the same. Tattooing, it is about the intensity in which it's packed into the skin, and that there was many videos on color saturation and what that is. It's basically, but that is the physical, technical way of applying a tattoo, is how it is saturated into the skin. But then, yes, this is my one little way of like contributing to that, and using a painterly method, the painterly way of thinking about what is saturation, because I am putting ink in skin. But overall, what is the main image when you step back and look at your tattoo? What makes it look well saturated? It is how I put it into the skin. It is also the color theory, and it's also the design that I put into it. So I wanted to cover just design things first, and then kind of roll into a little bit more of the technical side, being client care being number one. And then these are the phases as well that I think about, from phase 1, 2, 3, when I first meet my client to they're in the chair and they're tattooing. I always think about the art end first, and really kind of process what their skin tone is, where it is, what their environment is. And so I can start thinking about then, what needles do I need? What is my approach to this overall? And of course, what pigment I need. And if anyone's a painter, they can kind of they can feel, or they are also familiar with getting to know with what style of painting do they want to use, what medium, like oil or watercolor, what brushes they need, what base, what tonal background they're going to start with. It can be very intimate. And so I am very intimate with, my pigments, with my needles. Thank you, Marc. With my machine, with my client, all of those things go together for me. So, yes, no, thank you for clarifying with me or asking for me, because, sometimes
you said you like questions. So,
yeah,
hey,
I do.
That's what I'm here for.
Yeah, no, thank you. Sometimes I don't know. Yeah, I'm like, are people completely confused what I'm saying? Just let me know. It's okay.
I know what you were talking about, but I just, like I said, the terminology was slightly different than what I'm used to myself. So I needed clarification just so that I can understand what you're saying better in the way you're intending it is what it is, so that I don't walk around going, what the hell did she mean by that? I don't.
What?
There's
Yeah.
no sense in having a conversation if I'm not really listening, right? So.
I mean, no, but I mean, in knowing these terms, you can learn a lot of really cool tricks. And so you did bring up value being one of them. And I think one of the coolest tricks that I could do, because for a long time I would outline everything, then I would do all the black and gray for the tattoo, and then I would do color. And then, it was still, there was like a flatness to it that I wanted to just diminish. I wanted to be more vibrant. I want to be more eye popping. And speaking of Dave Tevenall, he does also something.
He doesn't get 2 mentions in one video. That's just.
Oh, that's true. Dave, you're fine. You're fine. But let's see if you were a neo-traditional artist or just a dynamic artist in general, you probably sculpt your lines. So when you're sculpting those lines, that is a heavily saturated line. You don't see any raking or anything like that. It's a nice, thick, bold line. And the darker that is, the most intense that is, the way that looks, that's a high saturated color. So imagine if you put high saturated pigment color choice in with that as well, and highly saturating it into the skin. That is going to be one saturated tattoo. And so that's kind of how I, that is actually a good person to bring up. She's fine. She's fine.
We're all jealous of his saturation. I won't even say his name that time. So, but yeah.
Yeah. He shall not be named. But playing around with desaturated colors is really fun. And you can do that either by picking out, so so this is another way to think about it too, like as a tattooer looking at your pigments. If you look at all of your really raw colors, you have red and this raw, no whites, no other, they're not mixes of things, basically blue and green, not teal. If you have those basic raw colors that are very bright, they're very bright, vibrant, those are your high saturated colors. Those are true, those are honest, they're unmixed, they're untampered with. So as soon as you add a color to that, that will desaturate the color. So, and then if you add black to that, that changes the value of the color. So for a long time, I was just messing with the values of colors. And I had no idea that this is what I was doing. I thought I was just changed. I thought it was really, really edgy, But then when I learned about more full chroma, which is a fancy term, which is intensely high saturated color and how it looks, I learned, instead of, adding, a white to my green to make it lighter, or dark, maybe I'll add like a dark blue to my green and to make it just a darker value or a darker saturation or desaturated color. And that added just a little bit more element, a little bit more realism, a little bit more kick to my overall palette. And trust me, you have to use black. If anyone reads this incorrectly, I don't know. You have to have black to have intense color. You have to. But pick those spots that will be black and make sure that they're really black. And then in your spots that you want to be a little bit more pushed back, then desaturate those colors by, adding, I call reflective colors. So if you have a bird here and then a plant here, on this side of the plant, it'd be cool to do some cool tones or some warm tones reflecting off of this warm bird. Or, you can have fun in matching colors that way. And so you can look that term up.
No, this is the bird. This is
the bird.
This is the bird. Yeah.
So over here, yeah. So if the sunlight's over here, you can add a little bit of like a very soft yellow to your highlight, and that'll add. Actually, can you look maybe at the parrot, Gabe? Trying to think of or look at the squid monster. That's a really fun one. Or the crab. The crab's good too. Oh, squid monster. Okay, all of that is desaturated color. All of that, except for that really, really neon yellow. And I use that as like a power color or power line color, so I can really push everything out. And same thing there, yeah. But everything else kind of pushes back a little bit, except for the skin tone that's showing through all those brights. And then the parrot, same thing. Oh, let's see, where is that little guy? Oh yeah, there we go. Hi, parrot. There we go. So I used a really, really intense, high saturated color to use as our foreground pieces and my main pieces. And then as you see those soft greens in the background, that's a desaturated color because I mixed it down with other colors. There's not much black and gray use in this piece because I wanted just an absolute full chroma, powerful vibrancy to the whole piece. And then let me see if there's what else is there.
But you use some darker values there to create the depth and give it shape.
Right. And that's, if you see that black in the wing there, that black is very important because then it pushes out those, there we go, pushes out that front bloom. There we go. Of the wing. Yeah, there we go. And also of the bird of paradise. It allows that highlight to really be pushed through and forward. And so you see the entire piece. So, over time we do this as well. I try to use high intensity because, colors will fade with time. So if I'm going to be using a desaturated palette, and there's a lot of people that will use like pre-mixed tones and just all desaturated colors, all of them. And if you take away the saturation in the background, it's a very flat piece. But imagine your client healing this, and those colors will naturally desaturate over time. But then if you start out very, very vibrant and very, kind of over the top, as I think it is, but people seem to like it, then it will age even longer with them. And so I try to really produce just an absolute intensity. Actually, in the galaxies too, that's a really good example. I try to, with every single galaxy I do, I really like freehanding them now. I've gotten really handy with some galaxy work. In the background, I really try to soften things up. I really try to, just kind of mute it out just a little bit, even though I'm trying to keep it very bright. Instead of making it dark and flat in the background, I'll just mix things up with other colors. Where in the foreground, I will use straight from the bottle that intense color. So it really kind of pushes forward. And then even with the planet in the beginning, in the front, that's a very, very intense, high saturated color. And so that your eye will pick that up first. And it kind of gives, moves the eye around the piece, which is very important.
So you use it as a tool to separate your foreground and your background, like you would focus or contrast, or it's just another tool that you use to accomplish the same.
Yes, it's very much another tool. Absolutely. And with that, I've never done that. That looks nice. No, basically, let's see, your desaturated colors will support your high saturated colors. If you want to look up any kind of artwork from Matisse, he's a very old painting man. He is a perfect example of his whole paintings looks like a desaturated color. And then all of a sudden you'll see just like these vibrant neon rich reds and some weird distant soft clouds. And that is what your eye first picks up on. So you have contrast, you have overall design, but then you have these color choices that will really, really completely change and alter your entire piece. So I do feel like it's very, very important. Let's see. Oh, that's pretty. We've done pretty. Oh, I did want to pick up too on black and how my black looks really saturated as well. A lot of people have asked me that, and I'm totally willing to give this up freely because it's one of the coolest things that I've ever learned. But so I do use a really, really amazing black, and I use Allegory black, and then I use a lot of industry inks for their gray washes and things like that. But I will use a really dark concentrated either indigo blue or purple, depending on what my client's skin tone is. And that's the same theory when I am saturating the color. Physically, I will make sure that it is packed in very evenly and smooth. And you can even, there's different tricks to making sure your dark colors are really, really saturated really nicely. And that's basically keeping that skin surface really clean, making sure you see it at all angles. But I also add just a couple drops of very, very, very dark, like I love an indigo blue. I love like a very dark purple concentrate. And that will add either a rosiness, depending on what kind of purple you use. I try to go for cooler tones of purple, so a lot more blues. You know, if your purple looks a little rosy, a little red, I try to stay away from that because generally we're all a little bit rosy based. No one's blue, I don't think. Maybe those hill people.
I think, I mean, I used to use like a purple concentrate, like for getting a darker value of most tones. And like in some areas, instead of shading off of my line work out with a black and then laying out with a color, I started doing that either maybe with just the slightest bit of black fade out and then going over that and coming out farther with the purple concentrate or violet concentrate. I want to say it was Guy that brought that to my attention years ago. And I think, and I could be going out on a limb and speaking pure bullshit at this point in time, but I think the theory behind that is that it works as a shadow color for everything, the dark purple, simply because it's opposite the yellow sun on the color wheel. So it's a complementary to the yellow sun. So that is the reason why it works everywhere. I believe that's the way it was explained to me, or I'm just senile and, you know, can't put two things together at the same time. I don't know.
No, it's one and the same. I promise. No. Okay. And we have that natural bright base that is warm toned. And so when you're cooling it down, it is the opposite of the spectrum. It will give it more contrast. It will give it more value. It will give it that, it will break it down. And Guy does talk about this. And so I started applying it more and understanding it in this different way when I was working on space and just more galaxies, more space. Because I was, if I did overall purples or overall blues or overall everything, then even my backgrounds of black looked flat. So I even began, if I had a lot of cool dust, like a lot of teals, a lot of blues, a lot of things like of nebula dust, then I would try to even add like a dark berry or a burgundy to my blacks. So I would have that intense high chromatic, like, you know, that intense color.
It makes a great transition.
Exactly. And you can even do this with white. This is a little trick. Adding white to any pigment, and much like painting and tattooing, white is always done at the different or at the very end. So it doesn't, it's not permeated by any other color. And if you're having a little bit of a hard time really intensifying colors next to one another, that it might be kind of high saturation already, I add a little bit of white. It changes the value of the color. It also creates a boundary, which will read differently as well, even next to that highly saturated color. And that's kind of another trick like that black, just adding a little something to it, just so it adds that difference. And really, it's thinking about every single tone you have as an individual and how can it, opposing colors, you know, how can it be opposite than the other on the color wheel? And that's actually kind of funny that you bring that up because, well, I did want to talk about color pigments as well a little bit and how I take care of them. But I think that's really, basically everything I want to talk about color saturation, especially basically, I just want to make sure that everyone finds like good balance and harmony, you know, within their palette that they pick for their tattoo. And there's all these tips and all these rules that you can do. But sometimes I will even use the rule of 3 when I'm designing. May that be black, unsaturated color, or saturated color, or I'll use muted tones. And I will try to design everything and keep the eye flowing and keep the design really dynamic this way. I have been having a lot of fun in the last maybe 5 years with the color wheel as well. And for a really good looking saturated piece, this goes along with picking out what colors you have. And sometimes I don't know if anyone's like me, I have as much color pigment as possible. I use industry inks, which is, I don't know if I can do that. Can I do that?
You can do whatever you want, kid.
Okay.
We all love Matt and Eric, so. I saw how you slid that in there anyways. It's just perfectly fine.
I was
They're
really
family.
lazy and I moved some stuff and I was like, perfect. Yeah.
It's okay. They're family.
Okay, good. Yeah, they are. Wonderful people. I have followed basically the same recipe now since I've been tattooing and I am diehard on it. They have, their pigment is actually pretty, their palette is really nice. But what I like about them most is that I can have a really nice variance of true pigment colors, like high saturated colors. So, and the viscosity of all of them are really, really mixable. I try not to mix in the tube or in the skin. I try to pre-mix all of my caps, you know, the colors I will use, because I am using larger pieces, and I would suggest to anyone who's doing larger pieces, more than an hour, to have your pigments pre-mixed in the caps if you can, or if you're doing something like a back or anything like that, I will buy a bottle for my client just to make sure that, and I've done this for years, and Industry Inks is pretty good on their consistency. And that is so important because you can lose your saturation of color if, say, you have one bottle that is one color and then they come back months later and then that color in that bottle is a new bottle, and so it's a different color, is sometimes a problem. So for years, I would actually like designate my client to a bottle. And so every single time we would have to add on or anything like that, it was the same pigment. It was the same, you know, color.
I personally like to bring a bottle to every tattoo I get, but different.
Oh,
never mind.
You're like the worst client, Marc.
Probably why I'm not heavily covered. Nobody wants to tattoo me.
I'll get you in the chair. You'll be fine. You'll be fine.
No, but I agree. Like it's just like back in the day, you know, making my own bottles of pre-wash, you know, or just wash or pre-made washes before it was even a thing in the world. And then And then the truth is, with some large scale back pieces I have, I would mix small 1 or 2 ounce bottles if I was doing something really, really, really large scale.
Mhm.
Sometimes there, well, let's just say I'm so old that there wasn't the palettes available that the color variations that there are these days. So I would do that. There was one particular ink vendor who's still dear friends of mine that they used to sell me ink in 16 ounce bottles that we would have in the supply room of the shop, and everybody would have their own small blank unlabeled bottles that they would go back and refill on a regular basis, because we were still sort of like, none of your business what we're using in you. But anyways, I would sometimes need 1 or 2 particular shades. I would pull out just a little 1 ounce bottle or something like that and make them, and yes, store them away for that particular project to make sure I was going to have the consistency to the end. So it's cool to know other people think like that too, because I thought that was a bit odd. In fact, this might be one of the first times I've ever talked about it. So
Yay!
it's out now. It's out.
It's out now. It's out. The secret's out. I'm just a huge nerd, and I remember this stuff, and I keep logs. I've just done so many jobs that this is just how I approach everything. Everyone has paperwork. Everyone has, like, I write their tones that I use on them every time, but I think about it. I log it for of course, for the batch numbers and their safety, but I also log it just to make sure that I know, so I keep the consistency of their tattoo ongoing. Because for a long time, there was a problem where multiple companies would fail in keeping their colors consistent. And that was a huge problem, trying to color match months down the road when your client needs a touch up. Ooh, they have a scrape they need refilled in. You'll be sitting there like trying to color match and hope that it's the right one. And that's really unfortunate, and we don't have time for that, or nor do we need to cause any more trauma to our client's skin. So that is a really good thing. And a lot of people I know even too, like, keep their pigments in the refrigerator, just so that it doesn't break down faster. And I'm like, that's a little extreme, because hopefully
I'm
you're
gonna tell you, I
using.
don't think I've been mixing powder inks for most of my career and manufacturing
Some
inks for
nerds.
sale since 2006. And I'm going to tell you that from what I understand about chemistry and molecular structure and all this and other thing, you don't want to expose it to extreme heat or cold.
Or cold.
Yeah. No, big no.
Think
I don't
about.
think so.
Okay, good. I wanted to put that out there because I know some nerds.
Unless some chemist out there wants to comment and correct me, but I'm going to say that's just, that sounds.
I think about condensation. Yeah, condensation. I think about, don't do it. But one thing I do, because our bottles are long and tall, and I also a wine drinker, and so we lay our bottles on the sides, so your pigment will separate no matter what, because we have gravity. I know it sucks, but we have it, and they will separate, and this is why we shake them. And this is why we keep up a good regimen of that. So I shake my inks every day before I use them, but I also every once a week go through all of them and make sure they're all really well shook. But I started laying them on their sides. And so now I can just go through every night and rotate them. And that also keeps the pigment really, really dispersed within the bottle, because I would run through bottles and, I'd have all my bottles lined up proudly on the shelf, and I would finish a bottle and then see that there was all this sediment in the bottom of rich pigment. And I can't tell you how many years I've done that and needed to touch those tattoos up before I just started laying them on their sides. And I'm getting the full viscosity of that pigment, and that's what we want. We want everything in that bottle that we have to be well dispersed, well shook. And so I think even maintaining your pigments and your tattoo pigments is really, really important. And if you are a type of tattooer that is experiencing a lot of, you're just hitting the skin, and it's not going in, it just looks watery, it just looks, you're not getting it, try it, just lay them down their sides. I have a shelf that's in the shape of a circle, and I devised these little like ink holders. And so they're all laid on their sides. And I even made it organized like the color wheel. So I can just literally grab, yeah, I'm a huge nerd.
No OCD here at all.
None, no control issues whatsoever. It's actually the cutest thing ever, Marc. Got it at Target, you know. But
Whatever works.
Whatever works, and it's easy for me, and I have the color wheel right underneath it, so I can even just double check myself and making sure that I'm not breaking any rules. Because when I feel in the moment, I will want to grab something, but then I will want that double check. I will want that, you know, just that reference, and I can look at their skin even and see if something is different. You know, I don't want to be stumbling in front of my client when I'm supposed to be, you know, the one in charge. So taking care of your pigments, I think, is a huge, huge step in creating fully saturated pigments for sure. And also, if you're having those issues of just you're hitting the skin and you're hitting the skin and you feel that little pop and it all feels good, but you're just not getting the pigment in, try really taking a look at your bottles and seeing what your pigment's doing. Get one of those little shakers, you know. I can't even tell you which one's good because none of them are. Marc, make a shaker. I know they suck. They all suck.
I actually bought a sample lot from a company overseas, and I brought them in, and the very first one I opened up, it worked for about 25 seconds and then failed, and took it apart, figured out why it failed, and in theory it's not a difficult device to make or whatever, but I just don't have time. I have way too many projects right now, so I would love to help you out, but you can just
you can just get rid of those flab. Get rid of the flab. Yeah. If you're feeling overweight, if you're feeling downtrodden, just shake some inks. You know,
it's good exercise to keep your carpal going.
If you're a girl in a shop full of men, just look them dead in the eyes when you do it.
No, we're not going there. Come on, the last time we talked, it was
it's just good protocol. It's good protocol. But back to actually technically saturating the skin the pigment into the skin. I also do this little trick where if I'm doing a very large space of color, you know, I have some days where I just do blue, you know, and I call them my blue days, you know, or my yellow days. Oh, we're packing yellow today. I have the big bucket cups and they're great, but I will fill them up and I will do several of them. And then I will only use them about 3/4 of the way in. And then that last little fourth, I'll just leave. And I know that sounds very wasteful, but there's a couple different reasons. And there's actually two theories. One, your pigment is drying, thus making the molecules of the pigment particles bigger. And so you're not able to actually get it into the skin if the pigment isn't loosely flowing through the needles as impacting. Or your plasma, your lymph fluids are diluting your pigment every single time you leave the needle from the skin and dipping back into that pigment. So again, if you want full viscosity in your pigment bottles, same thing in your caps. You have to be mindful that, you know, we are dealing with human juices every single day. Juices. And juices. Well, I can say juices. All right, whatever.
Are those juices moist?
Oh, Dad, gross.
There's just some words that make you giggle like a child. I mean, it's just, I don't know.
It's true. It's true.
It's the 12-year-old in me.
Oh, I love it. I absolutely love it. God damn it, Carol. I'm like, what am I doing?
I'm sorry, I throw you off topic again there.
I know, so, every time.
All right, so tell us how you achieve this saturation. What type of techniques? Follow down that road. Give us a little more clarification.
Okay. We've talked about the art side. We've talked about the painting side. You all know about desaturated color, muted color, high saturation color, and chroma. We talked about that and how important that is for your design and saturating. But color saturation, and I actually turn the power down a lot. If you're tattooing and you're just, I can't get into the skin, and you've got your power cranked up to a 10, I believe in my experience that you're doing it wrong. Try turning it down. I usually run about to a 7 to a 2 point, or a 7.2 to a 7.5. This will change depending on your machine, of course, and your power supply. So really, you need to kind of experiment carefully. And I will kind of go in for the first round and see, what my client's skin is doing and kind of figure it out. I have a very gentle approach, and even the client will notice. They're like, oh, wow, you're just kind of like tampering around a little bit. And I feel like that is a real game changer and not wasting any time throughout your entire tattoo session. If something is wrong within the first 5 minutes of you tattooing, you need to change it immediately. So sometimes when I have a client's skin and I am saturating a very thick, opaque color, the value of that color is very, like it is, it's a high intensity color. I will always go for actually a larger pin needle. So I will go for about a 12 because it will create a very large puncture wound. So it can actually give the skin that large molecule as well. And it will hold those large molecules as well. It's quite trying to try to use a bug pin necessarily, a very tight group bug pin for a high molecule pigment. Whereas if you use a black and gray wash, that's more appropriate for a very tightly weaved small pin needle, because then you can actually get that color flow going. And so I use a little bit more thicker mags. I really like the groupings of them. I like how they're scattered, and thank you, Marc, for developing needles along the way.
Well, part of what you might not be picking up on this for the reason
Yes.
that's working is surface area. Okay, a larger pin and a shorter taper has more surface area. So there's more ink physically on the surface of the needle going into this larger hole, and that creates, well, it just adds more pigment, end of story.
Right.
The thinner needles, the bug pits, stuff like this, they're more proficient with the blacks and the grays and stuff for yes, the surface area makes a difference there too. There's less surface area, but also traditionally in pigment making, black pigment is ground a lot finer before it is added to a liquid and then eventually becomes a tattoo ink, where color pigments are generally left a little more coarse when they're milled. So they're a little larger, so they have a tendency to work better with the larger needles and stuff. So just a little
Exactly.
30-second crash course on needles there. So.
No, thank you. Oh, how did you know so much? No, thank you. Black is so thin. That's why black tattoos sometimes even heal a lot faster. Your cell structure can read and devise what it wants to do with black pigment much easier, much faster than, say, a thicker molecule, which the skin will see as being invasive. It will see as it being a little bit harder to weave the cell structure around it and heal it and encapsulate it into your skin. So yes, I think it's reds and oranges and things like that. Those molecules are, I think, the largest. And those sometimes are the hardest to pack in as well. So the more surface area you have and the larger puncture holes you have, and that shorter taper can actually take it, scoop that pigment and just we're implanting it into the skin. And so to do this, I turn my machine down. So it gives it time to actually do that action. If you're just chop, 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 chop as fast as possible, you're not giving that time for the pigment to flow through the needles and to actually do its job and to let those needles do what they need to do. And they are designed very specifically to do that. So if you're just trying to rush through a tattoo, you're going to be actually making it a lot harder for yourself, more traumatic to the skin of your clients. And you might have a harder heal. Your client's skin might even want to keep and accept the tattoo pigment because of the trauma that it's experienced. It might have a very hyperactive response and try to push everything out because it's received trauma. And that's the job of the skin. And I do love the human organ of the skin because it's, God damn it, Marc.
12-year-old.
God damn it. just look them dead in the eyes.
Speaking of 12-year-olds, I'm going to take this moment to mention my very favorite employee who brought me this mug is Travis Prindle. Just for anybody that's paying attention, we all love Travis, and he loves me. Just
good job, Travis. That should say #1 best dad.
Back to your current programming.
So no, now the human skin is an amazing thing. It is meant to protect us. It is meant to be decisive and fast acting, and when it needs to be defensive. So you want to just ease in the fact that we are implanting pigment particles into the surface of the skin. I think that there are multiple things about just color packing in general, but those are definitely things that I think, a gentler approach, a minimal approach is just the better way of being a little bit more efficient with your tattooing and really get the hours in. And that is really how I've achieved so many good, fast, good in the sense of it healed very smooth, it healed very consistent, and it healed well. The client didn't have any issues. What I like to hear from my clients is that I had minimal peeling, no scabbing, no scarring, no oozing, no anything. So these are all things that I like to hear. They're like, oh, it's great. It was like nothing. And even my aftercare is pretty minimal. Everyone has their own, choices. I try to go as simple as possible, as hypoallergenic as possible. Like nothing in the world is hypoallergenic technically, because we're all allergic to something. But if you can take away anything that might be a little harsh, high alcohol content, any kind of perfumes, any kind of fragrance whatsoever, also any kind of dyes, any additives to your aftercare will just kind of act the same as something that has traumatized the skin. It might act in defense because it's combating too much at the same time. Your body will heal the tattoo naturally. So you don't need necessarily a healing agent to help heal your tattoo. I hope that makes sense. I have this conversation all the time with friends and colleagues, and everyone's like, oh, well, it smells really good. I really like using it. But I'm like, well, what is that smell exactly doing? I use S8 gel. I, long time ago, got to get actually pretty smashed with the chemist who designed and made everything for S8. And so I got to hear his entire program. And I had a blast, being a biology major. In college, I got to sit down with him and I felt like a little kid on a circle rug hearing stories. And he was really thankful that a tattooer wanted to actually speak with him on why he designed what he did. And I like it because of those reasons of it being as hypoallergenic as you possibly can. He made it with the act of tattooing in mind and not necessarily the niceries that a lot of tattooers like to have, like it smells good and things like that. And I don't really care about that kind of stuff because I'm a gentle flower cause, as I like to say, and it's a syndrome caused by birth, where I'm allergic to everything.
Anybody see that eye roll there? It was a little dramatic.
Yeah.
A little.
Well, Marc, I went to an explorers. It was the San Antonio one. It was a smaller explorers show, and I can't tell you the anxiety. My friend said bravery, but the anxiety and fear I had standing up an entire room, raising my hand and saying, I'm the 1%, because they were talking about an aftercare product that they're like, oh, like 1% of people are allergic to this. And I've used that product and had a terrible, terrible reaction that left my tattoo healing for 3 months. I had an open wound, and that could have left me to staph. That could have left me to bigger problems down the line. And if I didn't have the first aid care or training that I have, that could have become really a health concern. So I had to stand up in a room full of, I don't know, maybe 100 or so people or more, and just say, I'm the 1%, and have everyone then bombard me with questions of why. And I just sum it up to, every now and again, it's a perfect little, you know, I have all the variables that would give me a sensitivity to whatever elements are in that product. And it wasn't just one, it was several. So whatever I can do to reassure my clients that they'll have, again, a really good experience, a really good healing tattoo, I really do everything I possibly can in my power. You know, and sometimes it just takes a little digging, you know, on your aftercare or your sign-in sheets. I also put a couple different allergies. You know, I just don't do what the state requires. I really try to figure out if they are, you know, what it is they are allergic to. Maybe to our gloves, our glide, our aftercare, anything. Hopefully, I think most pigments these days are going more organic or vegan. And there are reasons for this, in which I can kind of quickly cover, just to squash any ideas about why I do that. Because I hear a lot of rhetoric that is kind of like eye rolling to me. But a lot of people think like, oh, you want to be vegan, you know, because it's hip. And actually, no, it's just closer to our own anatomy. You know, if you're using a lot of evasive materials that are unorganic, your body will not register them as friendly. They'll see them as foe. And so they'll either push them out, or you'll develop an allergy, or you have an allergy to it. And developing allergies is a thing that occurs throughout your entire life. I had a small skin infection from some poison ivy or something when I was camping in the Poconos, actually, with Troy, and he got to see this thing happen. And it was a skin infection from poison ivy that led the infection to eating a pigment, one color, in between black lines, about 2 inches. And it just picked up that one pigment because it was old. It was an older tattoo I got, you know, way before the before times. And it had unorganic materials in it. So we have to be very mindful of what our pigments are, what is in our pigments and what we're using, and making sure that it's just something that our body can maintain and live happily with. Mm-hmm. So I think about all these things.
That leaves a whole different discussion there too about organic and inorganic pigments, because the general public, when you sit there and talk to somebody, when you say organic pigments, the world is thinking, oh, this is all natural, earth grown, blah, 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 blah. Well, no. In the pigment world, organic is synthetic, laboratory created, which is essentially an attempt to get it the most inert as possible, because most of the stuff that grows and lives on the planet out there, you really don't want to stuff into your body, into your skin, because it's going to create reactions. But that's a whole different topic for discussion, and I'm not here to educate the whole world all at once. Got a couple little questions or notes here that first of all, my mother says hello, Renee.
Oh, hi.
Hi, Mom.
Hi. Happy Mother's Day.
Okay. And then we got a viewer that also made a couple quick comments saying warm colors come forward, cool colors recede as well. That's from Techni999. And he also wanted to mention he's coming from a painting background, I believe. And just add the word color before you say saturation, I guess, is color saturation versus skin. Okay, so that might be a little more helpful when you're speaking, I guess, about the color saturation versus the pigment load style physical saturation. I guess maybe.
Sorry about that. Sorry, I thought I did that, but
no, but it's because it does have two sort of definitions. It kind of makes sense. So thanks for that pointer. And then he has a question about, does the ink ride the needle and get pushed in, or does the ink get sucked in when the needle exits like a vacuum? Well, I can honestly say I have not explored that 100%, but being more of an engineer mindset and understanding physics a little bit better, the needle being in the hole filling and there's no void in the hole, as that needle pulls out, it would create a small vacuum. But because until the taper comes out, there's very, very little that could go in from externally. So the pigment is based on the surface of the needle. It gets forced partially in, and then
out.
I think what has a bigger effect is because you're talking about cycles per second when tattooing. Cycles per second is the number of punctures per second, and you're looking at anywhere from people tattooing probably as low as 60 cycles per second, and that's really, really slow. But I'd say most of my best color packing was like in the 85, 90 cycles per second is where I find best saturation. And when you're lining, I've heard of people lining as high as 130, 40, 150 cycles per second. So what's happening is the needle's puncturing, making a hole, and before the hand can physically move that far, there's all these holes that the needles are coming back down and just stuffing pigment into the adjacent holes that were prior created, is the way I visualize it all happening. And the cycles per second, again, comes back to you saying slowing your machines down. I've been a firm believer in that since early on in my career, especially once I started understanding Tabori tattooing. You watch these fellas, and they physically just slowly and methodically puncture the skin with simple motions, and they get amazing color saturation, pigment saturation, both in a very, very, very slow speed. So I consider, instead of, you could put pigment in by hammering it in, or you could put pigment in by massaging it in. I prefer to massage it in because less trauma to the skin, faster healing, and a whole lot of other perks too. So I hope that kind of answers your question. And again, I could be wrong. This is just my visualization, what I see with a little bit of an engineering mindset. So do you agree with that, Renee, or do you see it differently?
No, I think that the well inside the tube does create a nice little vacuum, and then the needles being pushed out does push that pigment into the skin. But if it didn't have that vortex effect, that motion coming out, your ink would just kind of come out while you're doing it. So I think it's the space in relation to, like, yes, the speed, the rate that your machine is working at. And also, yeah, just the overall size and shape, creating that little vortex, sucking it back in and moving it around. But I mean, we do have pigment that comes out with so it's not an absolute suction like a vacuum. It just keeps it enough to where it is like a nice little well, like a little pocket of ink. And yeah, it creates more of like a little vortex, keeping it in there. So I think, yeah.
And 90% of the ink that you pour out goes out in the trash on wipes and throughout the the ink caps and stuff like that. I mean, the amount that actually physically gets into the skin is minimal. I mean, compared proportionately to what you pour out, it's
right.
People don't understand that too. So, and that also leads to the idea you're talking about, the importance of maybe not using the full ink cap and other stuff, because that is continually getting contaminated by, like you said, lymph fluid and plasma, or even a little bit of green soap or whatever else you're using as a soap or a cleaner. It's all slowly making its way back into that ink cap and kind of diluting it after each dip. So that makes sense. So, all right, we got some questions. Okay. I'll let you carry on now. I just keep interjecting.
Oh no, that's okay. I mean, yeah. If there's any more questions, I would be glad to answer them.
So Tech999 does say thanks. I'm learning and was getting conflicting answers. So thank you very much. It does answer. There's another question that I know is out there. Now that tattoo conventions are starting up again, and we know that you've been a very experienced tattoo convention attendee and you work the shows, are there any tips or tricks or any advice that you could give tattooers to get the most out of tattoo conventions?
Yes.
Oh,
Mark,
could you answer
oh,
that as a statement?
yes. Okay.
Cheers.
Yes, I have done many tattoo conventions over the last decade, none during COVID as of late. But there are many tricks and tips just to kind of keep yourself on game, keep yourself ahead and safe and organized as well. I have had a very organized system for years based off of state and city of every single client that I have throughout the country. So if I'm going to an area, I can pull either West Coast, Mid, or East Coast, depending on north and south, and devise my clients or organize my clients so they can all meet me at that one hub that I'm going to. And having paperwork on me, like physical paperwork, in case I lose my phone or in case I, drop my iPad at the airport, which just happened. I have their numbers, I have their contacts, I have everything. So your clients, the reason why you're there, to make money and to, prosper and not be stressed out, you have with you. So I really make sure that I keep everyone really informed and really well organized. So I don't have to, just have one more element of stress. Making sure that you have a checklist like Marc, needs really badly. Make sure you have a checklist before you get on the plane or before you get in the car to make sure you have everything you need to, one, tattoo, two, to draw, to take payments, any kind of comforts you might want, like your headphones, extra pairs of clothing, making sure the weather, what the weather is going to be whenever you travel, because at any given time, as I've learned, there could be a snowstorm in Denver anytime. I've done tattoo conventions by myself a lot, and I am a small person. So when a lot of tattooers think about traveling, they kind of get overwhelmed about all their gear and about everything that makes them comfortable and what they need to make sure that they're not hurting themselves and how you get it there. A lot of times I will pre-ship things straight to the hotel. So I'm not having to juggle around, the airport or subway systems or, diving in a taxi full of other tattooers and have a bunch of gear and a bunch of baggage with me. And that's been really, really helpful. I'll send merch, I'll send whatever. Sometimes I'm like literally buying my merch, like I'll be on Sticker Mule or something and sending stickers to the hotel like a week before I have to get there, just so make sure I have plenty of what I need. I'm a big person on nutrition. So I don't know if anyone's done a whole weekend of tattooing. Marc, I know you're definitely with me on this one. And you haven't eaten anything that resembles food in 4 days. So I will pack my own specified like Nutrigrain bars, and I'll pack like some dried fruits, some trail mix, even some glucose tablets for myself if I'm really feeling it. Sometimes you'll get delayed and you won't eat and you can't find a muffin anywhere to save your life. So I'll even think of my nutrition and make sure that I'm at least getting what I need every morning. Tattooing is, it's a really fun job. It's a lot of long hours, and conventions are even longer hours. You have to be present. A lot of convention runners don't, or providers don't like their people to leave early because people are still coming in the door expecting to meet tattooers that were advertised, and that is part of the deal. You stay until the show closes down. You show up when it opens. This is a contract that you have, with your booth, your booth partners and the person who's putting on the convention. So make sure, you remember that you're a guest, even though you've paid for your booth. It's not your house. You're there to represent yourself and the convention. We all are artists trying to make it together, and we need one another to make sure that we look organized and well maintained. So, that's one thing I always really, make sure that I'm prepared for the whole day. And sometimes I can be a straight 10 to 12 hours or more. So you got to make sure you keep yourself healthy. So same thing like tattoo regiment, that's really hard to kind of beat, but drink lots of water, get lots of sleep. do what you can before these events happen. Do some voice exercises, because I, for years, would be strained by the end of the convention. I would lose my voice completely. As anyone can hear right now. And yeah, I try to, I don't know, the physical aspect of it for me was always a big part. Because for years, I was really starting to hurt. I was really feeling lethargic. And I realized that I was literally carrying 150 pounds by myself through the airport, and then that just, at first I felt strong and powerful, and then I started feeling exhausted and weak. So, kind of preparing beforehand is really, really important, just to make sure things go smoothly and you don't hurt yourself on the way beforehand, because that's usually when things happen, is when you're stressed. I'm trying to think of getting there on time is really important. Make sure you read everything the person sends you, the shop or the convention promoter sends you. So it's load in times and things like that, so you can get yourself completely set up. Know that anything could happen. Sometimes convention centers are a mixed bag. Things will always go wrong when setting up. Things will be lost in transition. So make sure that you're prepared. I don't count, even though the conventions that I have done over the years have always been really consistent. I really, really try to bring some extras with me, like strip cords or extension cords. If I can go to the store beforehand, I'll buy paper towels and water. I'll just buy extra, just a little bit, so I know that'll get me through the weekend. I don't have to go to the store again. And if it's not available, at least I have it. Having this kind of organization can just really make your entire existence a little bit more pleasurable, because then, you can set up really quickly, and then you can get out to the floor and meet some really killer artists. Go shop around, go talk to people. And that's how I've been able to talk with people so much too, is being organized, being on top of the game, and thinking ahead a little bit. I've done random conventions before where I had 15 minutes to get ready and in the car, and I've made it. I've had the cardboard that's like, this is my booth, I'm sorry, I forgot my banner. That's been me. But as you get older, I like to present myself even better and better, because that's what my clients expect of me as well. And I try to give them as much of an at-home experience I can, even though, when they show up to the convention, they very much realize that they're in a fishbowl full of people. But once they're in my booth, I do like, creating a sense of calm, a sense of peace. And I'll be a total dork and go outside and collect, shrubbery and put it in vases that I steal from the hotel. And then, and just decorate a little bit. Sometimes I'll grab the hotel pillow and I'll wrap it up, and that'll be a pillow for either my client or my bum, or the niceries. I think I took lamps and chairs before and brought them down. So it's a little bit of more MacGyvering. It's a little bit more, just being a little brave. And I think that comes from being desperate and figuring it out, to be honest. And I've had some really amazing older tattooers kind of show me the way as well. Thanks, Marc. My my tattoo family has always showed me that it's okay to do these things. So I've always pushed the limit on that, for sure. Travel is a big, responsibility to yourself. So make sure you get to the airport on time as well, and make sure you have fun. Most important, if you're stressing the whole time, you're going to stress your crew out, you're going to stress your neighbors out. Try to center in, find your focus, and have fun, because these things are incredible that we all get together and are able to do this. I really do feel like tattooing has become an artist movement. It's been a very nice long one, but the conventions do bring us together so that movement can kind of go forth and grow into other things. And that's how we talked about industry and things like that. But with COVID right now, I am taking a little break with all the rescheduling from last year and the shutdowns, and just how I've been stuck at home. I have booked myself out pretty much into next year. And so I will be popping back up in conventions a lot more for next year, while I just, dare I say, hammer it out at home. Because I've got a pretty full schedule here right now, and it's pretty awesome. So I'll be coming up with some more back pieces and some more sleeves, because that's pretty much all I'm doing. But yeah, stay safe. If you want to do a convention in your area, just stay safe, be mindful of just this is a lot of different people gathering together. You never know what you might expect. If you work at a street shop, then you're probably used to the craziness. But if you're very much to yourself, just know you're going to be in a giant room full with a lot of people with high energy. So prepare yourself for that. Have some mantras along with you. I have anxiety, so I always deal with little things that can distract me real quick. I'll put my headphones in, or I'll have like a little stone that I'll just kind of rub around, and that kind of like helps me focus when I'm getting a little too bombarded. Or I'll go talk to a friend, I'll reach out, be like, oh, hey, you, come here and talk to me for a second. It helps me just focus on what's really going on, being in the present. And if you're, I could go off into so many directions about preparing, for tattoo conventions, but I think those are the main like highlights of just being prepared, being clean, being sterile. That's a whole other factor, especially because you're traveling, and TSA really does like to open up our cases. So if you don't want to ship your goods and you're going to take a Pelican case with you, I have developed this nice little trick where I will take my entire tattoo setup and I will put it in a bag, individual plastic bag. Everything I need is in that bag. You can see it. You can see what's in it. TSA does not open those up, especially if I leave them a note. Like, please, these are to stay closed and be clean. This is my business. If you have everything in dark boxes, if you have everything in little containers, they will open them up, and then it is no longer clean for your client. So, and plus you're digging around a Pelican case, you don't want to have to be touching multiple things while you get there. So I can literally open my Pelican case, take out like one bag, put down my drapery, and have a complete, like pretty much sterile area so I can work off of and be really efficient and make sure everything is very clean as well. Because you have to keep in mind, conventions are just basically tattooing in a giant garage, so I had that like I think the 6th year, and I was like, wait, this is a giant garage and we're all doing it. This is amazing. And everyone has their own, their own sterile techniques, and everyone has their own like ways of, but that one really works for me, is minimizing my movements. Because that's how you cross-contaminate, if you just add more movements to your setup and to getting the things that you need. And not having a whole lot of things out and about. I know a lot of people have been using like shoe racks, so they can hang up and see everything that they have. I like everything to be maintained underneath and preserved, just because I have had some wild scenarios happen at tattoo conventions. I think it was Tampa. Yeah, it was Tampa, where someone just crashed into me completely, and then everyone saw me get really testy. Spicy, I was called. So I prefer everything to be kind of tucked away, draped down. So if that happens again, not everything in my entire setup is completely destroyed. And you want to make sure that your client too doesn't have everything possibly thrown at them, which thankfully didn't happen that much with her, but it can, if that scenario happens. Not to say it happens all the time. I've been doing conventions for a long time, but I think that was the second time that's ever happened. And the first time I was with Zach Ross, and he was just like, oh, well, let's go, let's do it, and it was some drunk asshole that just couldn't deal with him tattooing his girlfriend or something. And so things like that do happen. You're dealing with strangers, and a large capacity. So just be mindful of that, just be prepared, and try to minimize your movements as much as possible. So one, you don't hurt yourself. I don't know if anyone's like me, but, I'm in my mid 30s and sometimes I'll paralyze myself by turning left, just taking a left. So if you can minimize your movements, you can help with contaminating your setup, and also not hurt yourself as much as well. Because chairs are funny, usually. I spoil myself a little bit, and I always try to go to like a Target and buy like a little rolly chair before the convention, or take it from the conference hall at the hotel. You can do this or not do this. It's up to them, Marc. It's up to them.
I just have one nutritional tip for conventions, because as I'm getting older, I like to eat a whole lot better, and this, that, and the other thing. And a lot of times you can't find the food at the convention center. So my big tip is, if there's nothing really good to eat there, get the chicken tenders and the French fries. That stuff is just boiled in grease. So all bacteria is dead, because the last thing you want is to have a stomach bug away from home at a show. It's happened to me multiple times, and it's one of the absolute worst. So, eat the crappy, deep fried, greasy food, and you will live longer, believe it or not.
You will live longer. Yes, it will soak into every single organ you have and preserve you.
All right. We're not talking organ saturation here. We're talking color saturation. So. All right. That was quite a distraction, it wasn't even my fault this time. I didn't do it. I'm the guy trying to stay on topic.
That was tips of conventioning. That was Gabe. Gabe.
All right. Good information, though. Good information. So, all right. So, what else do you want to tell people about saturation? We've talked a lot. So
yes, there's a lot.
What have we not mentioned that you want to mention?
I think I literally I'm looking down my list of things that I've created, and basically it is kind of thinking about saturation, or having fun with your saturation. One, with color saturation. Two, have fun physically applying and saturating your colors. You like that? Be creative with it. Have fun with it. Don't overwork your client's skin. You can tell. Do multiple sessions if you need to. There's nothing wrong with that. I've done multiple sessions in even a small tattoo if they're having a very robust inflammation response, because you will have a better outcome. You will have a better product, and that person will walk around, and that will get you more clientele, and that will get you more of what you want to do, especially if you show that you can do a good job with multiple things. Every tattoo, you should try your hardest. And it's hard to be honest with yourself and assess the situation, but that is what's to be decisive, is to think quickly and to be brave in your answers, and pointing out things that you professionally have learned, yourself, from your own influences and what you have learned as a tattooer. That's most important. Everyone has different scenarios. I have what I have learned from where I have tattooed physically in the world. A lot of darker skinned people. So this is where my influence comes from. This is where my knowledge comes from. I worked around neo-trad artists in Florida my entire beginning of my career. And now I get to work around a complete a variance of people doing everything. So I realize that I do have a very, very particular knowledge of what I know. And so I hope that anything that I've said, I'm sorry about any confusion again. I try to be clear on that, but that's what happens when you're overeducated in one area. You're just like, why people don't know that? Okay, cool.
Just because you understand it, why doesn't the rest of the world?
I'm glad people ask. If not, I would just keep rambling like an old weird professor. As like as my button says, just draw something, you know. Um, no, I hope that my point of view can help anyone kind of conceptualize how they can use color in also while saturating for their tattoos, you know, in the terms that we use it in tattoo world, and also the terms that we use it in the painter world, or the art world, in a sense, because they both overall are a visual outcome of the product that you're giving out, you know. And this is all just data to feed into your memory bank and come out with a really cool result. So I hope everything, you know, that we went through, just as far as taking care of your clients, to taking care of your pigments, to needle groupings, you know, I hope that everything kind of helps anyone along their path of, or their journey of tattooing, because it's all different and it's all really fun. So
that's what we're here for. We're just trying to share our experiences with other people in hopes that it, you know, may save them a little bit of grief and aggravation, you know, along the way. But it all depends on their own personality. Some people have to learn by their own mistakes and can't quite, you know, learn from other people's mistakes. So, but we're not here to teach anybody. We're here really just to share. We just
just
this is what works for us. And if it helps you, take it and run with it. And then if you learn something new in that direction, bring it back to us, share it with us. And we just, you know, we all evolve as a group and as a community that way.
Yeah, we are all strongest as ourselves as an individual. Like, we all have our special, unique way of thinking about things, way of applying things, way of approaching things. And if we can all somehow, you know, build together, then we can just keep growing and getting better and better and better and being more efficient. Absolutely. And everyone here knows that I'm very much like, we all try to critique each other. We all try to help each other out with design. We all try to help each other. It's a very nice conversation every day that I leave open to criticism and to any kind of statements that need to be given, just to make sure what's coming out the door is quality, you know.
You got a good group there. I can tell, because guess what? Nobody's knocked today. Your sign is working.
Yeah, exactly. They're all very respectful. They know that they know how nervous I get. So they're like, oh shit. Yeah.
No need to be nervous.
Yeah. No, it's actually been really funny. I am an extrovert introvert, and not doing conventions has been interesting. I know as soon as I get back into it, I'll just kind of like, oh, I'm here again. And then, but I guess the only difference is now I know that everyone else feels this way now. So we'll all be awkward together. And I think that's really special.
Being awkward together is kind of our thing, right? I mean, that's like, you know, I mean, it's we're all awkward, but in numbers we have group support, so that works for us, I guess, is the best way to put it. But
yeah, no, absolutely.
Just my perspective. I don't know. What the hell do I know?
It might be time to be awkward somewhere else, right? Marc, you got to get back to work.
Yeah, I have things to do here other than just sit here and chat with Renee. But
I know
she does
very,
too.
very good.
She's probably got clients sitting out there waiting, because we've rambled on for almost 2 hours. So,
yes, you're
all right. So we're at that point. You got to tell everybody what to do: like, share, subscribe. Give them the sales pitch, push yourself, say hi to whoever you want to, and then we can get the out of here, right?
Okay, good. Everyone, hello. Thank you, everyone, for watching. I hope every mother had a great Mother's Day yesterday. I have many mothers to be in my life, so I contacted all of you and told you already I love you, so hello. Please follow my shop and my studio at goldfangallery.com. You can follow us on Instagram and Facebook as well, all under Goldfang Gallery or Goldfang Gallery OKC. We are right down in downtown Oklahoma City. You can follow me at Renee Little Tattoos.com or on Instagram, preferably on Instagram. My books are closed for a little bit, so please check out all my beautiful coworkers. They're very, very talented, and I really, really love them dearly. Hit me up for 2022 conventions if there's somewhere you want me to go. Send send me an email, and I will try to see if I can make it to you. I will be posting my travel list this month, because I finally could actually schedule and organize myself for that. So stay tuned on my Instagram, or go on my website and see what I'm doing. So yeah, subscribe here to the Needlejig YouTube channel as well. There's a lot of really good information if you're a tattooer or even a client that wants to know more about tattooing and wants to know more about the process and what your tattooer is thinking like. Even though we're all different, we all kind of have the same drive and we want all the same outcome as a good tattoo. So if you want to see kind of what we're thinking, and you can just kind of sneak on us and have a good listen. And yeah, there's a lot of really good tips and pro tips to just making yourself a better artist and a better tattoo artist. And yeah, give it a follow. Oh yeah.
All right. On that note, I want to say thanks everybody for tuning in and giving us your time. And basically, yeah, great thanks, and catch you next time.